They are the first generation to grow up online, and the social media babies are now reaching the age to fully grasp and speak up about what it means to have one's childhood shared on digital platforms. I'm Anelise Borges, and this is The Stream.
Hi, public! Come on in. It's time to look at my small children. Honey, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Your brother was mean to you. No. Tell me exactly what happened. Don't look at the camera. No. More tears. This environment is unsafe for our children. Yet, these people continue to put their children in this unsafe environment all the time. And the reason, in my opinion, is because they look at the situation like this. Predators, paycheck. Predators, paycheck.
Social media is filled with these parodies of what life might be like for the child of a content creator. Sharenting refers to the practice of parents, caregivers, or relatives sharing information about their children online. And in today's day and age, with social media platforms so omnipresent, aren't we all a bit guilty of that? According to a study by Nominet, by the age of 5, the average kid has 1,500 photos of them posted online. But what are the long-term implications of having one's childhood exposed and stored forever online? What does it do to one's character and future? Joining us to unpack this today are Sarah Adams, an advocate for child safety and privacy online. She's joining us from Vancouver. Jess Maddox, a digital media professor at the University of Alabama. She's joining us from Tuscaloosa. Fortesa Latifi, a writer who has interviewed children of influencers, joining us today from Los Angeles. And content creator Abby Echo with us today from Kansas City. Thank you all so much for being part of the stream today. This is such an interesting topic for all of us. And Sarah, you are a very vocal advocate for the rights of children to privacy online and online safety. Was there something in particular, something specific that happened that made you start looking into this topic and start talking about it?
Yeah, so I became a mom in 2017, and I followed a lot of momfluencers, and I didn't think much of it. It felt relatively normal at the time. And it wasn't until about 2020, when the pandemic hit and we all went online more, that I started to feel very uncomfortable with the amount these mothers in particular were sharing and what I was seeing. And it was like a light bulb moment where I just thought, hold on, I'm a stranger. Why do I have so much information on this child? Why am I seeing their day-to-day activities? Why am I informed of their medical diagnoses? And it just made me feel very uncomfortable. And that was really the turning point for me. And I thought that maybe other people online would feel this too. So I started sharing my thoughts and opinion.
And started a very interesting conversation. Abby, you're also a content creator and a parent. Would you say that is difficult to navigate parenthood in today's digital world?
Oh, absolutely. I think honestly it was Sarah that changed my mind. When I found Sarah, I think I hadn't really posted content of my kids at all, really. I kind of moved away from that as a former mommy influencer. But Sarah, I think, was the one that really changed my entire perspective of like, wow, this is a really dangerous place. Because I don't have control once it's out there. I lose all control. And there's just nothing more important than the safety of my children. And there's already too many risks in the world. Why would I chance anything else that I have complete control over choosing to post or not post?
And obviously it's important to make a distinction, right? Because there's a lot of people that are doing this for fun. I mean, there is a difference between my mom sharing pictures of her grandchildren with her 6 followers and somebody sharing their children with 6 million followers. But the risks are kind of the same. I mean, for Tessa, you have spoken to people who have grown up in very popular content creator families. What are some of the things that stuck out for you?
Yeah, there were a few things. So one story that I heard from a young woman who grew up as the child of a family vlogger was that her first menstrual cycle was made into sponsored content. And so that's obviously a very difficult time in a young woman's life. And for that to be made into content is really hard. And I think another thing that I found is that socially it can be hard for these kids. So they're going to school and their peers know everything about them, and they're maybe interested in being friends with these kids because of the YouTube infamy. And so it can really complicate a time, childhood and adolescence, that is already so fraught and complicated.
Absolutely. And when you have that linked to advertising for sanitary pads, I mean, wow. Jess, when we were researching for this show, we came across this particular video. A creator accidentally posted it onto her channel, which gave viewers a glimpse of what may truly go on behind the scenes. Take a look.
Come here. Come closer for the video. Come closer. Come closer. Come closer. Put your head right here. Come closer. Closer. Down. Put your head down here. Act like you're crying. Really quick.
I didn't cry.
Go like this.
No, Mom, I'm actually seriously crying.
No, I know, but go like this for the video. Go like this. Put one hand up. Go like this. No, go like this. Put your hand like this. But let them see your mouth.
And this clip went viral and actually caused her to shut down her channel and seek counseling. But I mean, it is so shocking. How accurate would you say this might be for some content creator families?
I would say, unfortunately, that is far too accurate for the experience of content creator families. And watching that video just absolutely breaks my heart because, as my fellow panelists have already said, children don't understand the reach and magnitude of social media. They don't understand its permanence. There was always this fear that social media would make us grow up too quickly. But in fact, social media has made today's children live in permanent youth. They will never be able to escape that past. That poor young boy, that video is on there now probably for the rest of his life, or even if his mom took it down, there's still going to be copies everywhere. And he may not ever be able to outrun that. And that's one of the long-term implications of, unfortunately, this very accurate scenario.
It is heartbreaking also because these children are almost being forced to live a role, right? I mean, Sarah, Jess just said that the internet is forever. And with that in mind, how important is the issue of consent when it comes to sharing images of your children, of our children online?
Yeah, I talk a lot about informed consent and the fact that I don't believe children can give informed consent to have their human existence used as content on social media. Like, to Jess's point, like, social media and the internet is so vast, it is so permanent. There is so much that can happen that can have real life consequences for these kids down the line, affect their mental health, affect their well-being. Who knows, maybe affect their potential for getting a job or a career later in life. And therefore, I just don't think any child can give informed consent to be utilized in this way as, you know, a family vlogger kid.
Abby, speaking of consent and the risks, I mean, we also don't take into consideration, perhaps, just how these posts can easily surpass their intended audience. There's quite a lot that happens online and makes this content even more dangerous, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just that the video exists out there. It's that with the the technological advancements we have with AI, it's terrifying. I don't really post my kids at all anywhere, even privately, like for my Facebook friends, because there's too many things that could go wrong, that could go sideways, that are terrifying, and it just doesn't feel right to me. My oldest is 9. He sees mom be a content creator. He thinks it's awesome. He thinks it's cool. He thinks it's like I'm a famous YouTuber, and that's what he wants to do. And I no, I've seen too much. I know too much. It's not allowed, because once it's out there, you lose all control over it. You lose who gets their hands on it, what they do with it, where it goes, how it's used. I
so
just
you tell
don't
your
see
kid
the benefit.
no for him to be a content creator, so that's not something that you would like for him to do?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Oh no, not if he's in my house.
Not under your roof. Speaking of monetized content in particular, Jess, should platforms have more responsibility when it comes to content featuring children? Should, I don't know, YouTube, TikTok, Meta have something to say in terms of protecting children in such content?
Absolutely. Platforms 1,000% need to be a part of this conversation. Across the United States, states have been passing a host of laws protecting the financial interests of these children being in their parents' content, but these laws are the beginning of the conversation. We need a holistic approach to family vlogging that brings platforms into the conversation. If platforms can build a metaverse or figure out how to do something like that, they can build a unit or a task force whose job it is to protect their most vulnerable users. The most vulnerable users of social media, of course, being children. And it's not something we can do alone. Platforms need to be involved in the conversation. They also need to stop rewarding parents and content creator accounts who primarily feature their children. We have to remember that social media are business. They are products being offered to us. And so we do have a say in how we can manage them and how we can, what we demand as consumers. And platforms need to stop rewarding this content. And they also need to help in education and potentially even shutting down this type of content.
And as we said at the start, those who were once featured in their families' vlogs are reaching an age where they're starting to understand what it meant for them, and they're trying to raise awareness and educate others.
I am a child of a family vlogger, a former family vlogger that had people on YouTube thinking that I was pregnant at 13. That is why I'm so passionate about this stuff, y'all. Intimate conversations about sex, drugs, boys, all types of stuff were broadcasted on my mom's YouTube. Now, this was the early 2000s, early 2010s when family vlogging was becoming popular and the ramifications were not yet studied. She was a young mom. She did not know. When she found out, she stopped. Y'all know the ramifications because we have told y'all the ramifications, but y'all still continue to post your children's intimate moments. I am a child of a family vlogger that turned out okay in spite of, not because of. We are seeing the ramifications of these children. They were kids in the 2000s and 2010. They're adults now saying, this is how this affected me. I have a digital footprint that's going to follow me for the rest of my life. But that is not enough for y'all.
Fortesa, what are the potential long-term psychological effects on children who grow up with their lives so publicly documented online?
I think we're still trying to understand that, but one of the interesting things for me has been talking to psychologists and developmental experts for my book that I'm writing about this topic. And they told me that it's difficult for kids to go through moments of growth and changes in identity when that's being broadcast, because you kind of feel like you're set in this character that you are, when really the work of childhood and adolescence is to grow and change. And so that can be difficult. And I think there's also sometimes a lack of trust that occurs between the parent and the child. And this isn't the case in every family vlogging situation. I don't want to speak too broadly, but in some of the situations, there's a lack of trust between the parent and the child because they think, what can I tell you that won't be turned into content?
That is so horrible, isn't it? I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear that that would then interfere in the relationship between the child and their parents. Sarah, social media isn't going anywhere, nor will the economic model that emerged with it. What could be done? I mean, Jess mentioned a holistic approach. What are some of the things that you would like to see happen within this ecosystem to protect your children, to protect the children out there?
Well, one thing that I tend to focus on is normalizing a new mindset amongst parents that we should prioritize our children's right to privacy over our need for online popularity, that we shouldn't be looking at these children as products that we and our children can consume online. They are human beings who are worthy of privacy. So I personally like to focus on just shifting the norm in society and having parents pull back from sharing and having parents pull back from consuming this content and allowing their children to also consume this content while also supporting legislation.
So it's also about the audience, isn't it? Because let's face it, there's a lot of people out there watching this content. Abby, what steps have you taken to protect the privacy of your children, and what advice would you give to parents that are not content creators and are trying to balance sharing something that they find precious, but also keeping their children safe?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten rid of all the pictures of my kids from when I was a previous mommy influencer. Mostly just photos. I know that, like Sarah said, they are out there, but and they haven't been shown in my videos since, God, I don't know, 2019, 2020. I think it's just thinking about your kids as actual adults, actual human beings who have rights, who deserve rights, who deserve privacy, and just realizing that not everything is content. We hear a lot for people who want to be content creators. Everything is content. It's not. Some things are not meant to be content, and that's okay. And it's not your story to tell. If my kid grows up and he wants to talk about something that happened to him when he was younger, that's totally, those are their moments. That's not for me to decide.
That is very powerful. It's not your story to tell. Fortesa, do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I do think it's difficult though, because in studying mom influencers and reading about and interviewing them, I do think that there is value in mothers being able to share the stories of motherhood and to be able to say, especially in the US, this is how difficult motherhood is and this is what it actually is like. I do think there's value in that, but I think that has to be weighed against the child's right to privacy. And that's something that I've been really fascinated in seeing in the influencer world, is that there are mom influencers who are continuing to create mom content while also protecting their children. So they won't show their children's faces, or they'll only show them from the back or with an emoji over their face, or they'll call them by pseudonyms online. And so people are trying to find a way to do that, because I don't want to silence women's voices in this quest. I think that there has to be a way to balance both things. And we're seeing influencers kind of grapple with that right now, of how do I keep sharing my journey of parenthood without sharing too much about my child.
And you're right, the vast majority of them are women, aren't they? So it is interesting not to silence women for once. I mean, organizations like Stop Clicking Kids have been working in the US to pass legislation to help protect children in these situations. Here's what its founder, Chris, had to say about it.
There's a lot of different ideas in this space. How it started in Washington State when I helped to draft the original bill is a privacy protection for the children featured in these vlogs, but then also financial compensation, right? And so the first part, a right to privacy, says that when minors reach the age of 18, they can request a social media platform to go back and delete content where they were featured and they no longer want to be out there online. And the second part, financial compensation, is saying kids should earn, similar to traditional Jackie Coogan laws, which protect child actors. The children should have access to 15% of the gross revenue from the video that generates, right? Because if you are running your account as a business and you're using your kids to draw in all of that revenue and all that clicks and all of that attention, then you need to be compensating your kids for the role that they play in that. I think this is something, especially because we don't have those kids grown yet. Like, there's a lot of kids who are still a part of these family accounts who don't really have the agency to speak out. And it really requires us to think proactively about, okay, well, let's prevent there from being a whole generation who was not protected. But I think that's very challenging for constituents and legislators, especially, to see and address as a need. More often than not, it's the laws that have to kind of scramble and backfill when something becomes a huge problem. So it is a little bit of a challenge to get that focus shifted, but it's something that we're working on.
Jess, do you agree with Chris there in terms of what kind of regulation is needed, but also more broadly, perhaps, who would you like to see come up with these laws? Is it something that we need to do at a national level, or is it something, I don't know, more broadly, internationally, the UN?
Absolutely. I completely agree with Chris, who has done incredible work in this area. In the United States, while I am happy to see this legislation taking off, we are still very much doing it as a piecemeal approach, and it needs to go beyond just merely financial protections, include more things like privacy, include more things like the right to be forgotten laws, which some states in the US have tried to do. Right to be forgotten, of course, goes to what Chris was saying about children being able to petition platforms to remove content about them when they turn 18. This is common in other countries around the world. I would love to see a federal approach in the United States, because I don't believe this piecemeal approach will get us exactly where we need. And to the point of my fellow panelists, I do agree that a mindset shift is absolutely essential. I think part of the difficulty in combating this situation is a lot of people don't view content creation as work, as a form of labor. There's a lot of stereotypes and stigma, that it's frivolous, it's silly, it's, just glamorous people living very spoiled lives, is beliefs we have about content creators and influencers. But I teach one of the few how to be a content creator classes in the United States, and it is labor, it is work, it involves a lot of skill. And so that's another reason why, in considering this issue, this is a child labor rights issue as well. And that is something that needs to be tackled more on the federal level in the US.
Sarah, do you agree? And what kind of legislation would you like to see instaured in the years to come, again, to protect your children, but also all these children who are currently online?
Yeah, I agree with what Jess is saying. I think something on the federal level has the ability to protect more kids, and I would like to see more attention in regard to their right to privacy, as well as the right to be forgotten. And honestly, I think they deserve a little more money than what some of the laws are giving them at the moment, and also like a regulated system to actually monitor this, because right now it's kind of on the parent to do. There's no oversight in regard to the laws that have been passed in the United States.
Again, you guys are all, most of you, in the US right now, but don't you think that this is also, again, happening globally? Shouldn't we have some support from some international body here to kind of draw some limits when it comes to, because again, these children's and their image are reaching very different places when it comes to the internet. Abby, your take here. Do you think that some kind of international body could come and help with this? I mean, children should be protected. There are laws for this. Oh,
yeah. Should they? Absolutely. Will they? I don't know. That's a pretty big ask. I mean, we're struggling here, as Jess said, that just to get these laws at a state, a local, even a federal level, there should absolutely be protections, worldwide, but whether that's actually going to happen, I don't know. I think if anything, we need to put a lot more back on the responsibility of the platforms themselves. They have a lot of responsibility that they can use. They have things that they can do, and they're not doing it because they know how easily it is to prey on young children and use the content that they're in to continue to monetize.
Fortesa, when it comes to the responsibility of these platforms, we've been discussing here how difficult it is to hold these platforms accountable, at least for now with the legislation available. And so many of these kids, in the case of so many of these kids, the damage has already been done, similarly to what happened to child actors in the past. What advice would you give today to parents? I know that a lot of the responsibility are with parents, and we've been discussing maybe that's not even fair, but what advice would you give to parents today to strike some balance to protect their children, all the while sharing some information and some things online?
Well, I do think the responsibility is with the parents, because the odds of getting the social media companies to kind of step in line with this, I think, are slim to none. I would say they're basically 0%, because this content makes so much money. There's no financial interest for them to limit this kind of content. So I think the idea that they would help in this pursuit is just kind of misguided. So it is up to the parents. I think that question, it comes down to what each parent and what each child is comfortable with. But one of the things that I've heard parents say is, would I post something online that my child would be embarrassed by later? And of course, that's difficult to know, because maybe something's really cute when they're a toddler and then it's a little bit embarrassing later. But I think just even trying to have that framework of context and not just saying, okay, this is really cute or this is really funny, I want to share this, but just trying to take it just one step further and thinking for one extra moment.
And we'll definitely be all watching for that now that we had this conversation. For Tessa, Sarah, Jess, and Abby, thank you so much for being part of the stream today. And thank you all for tuning in. Do stay in touch with us on social media if you have a conversation or a topic that you would like to flag for us. Use the hashtag or the handle AJStream. Take care, and I'll see you soon.